Welcome all to this exciting session of Sathology with a very prominent personality who has lived his own life helping this cause of Sanatan Dharma and also creating good leaders through education institutes and through his own profession. So, very rarely we find a person who has the knowledge and the skills to do it effectively. And so, a lot to learn from this great personality, and I hope our students will also see a lot of learning from this personality. So, without delay, I would like to invite Dr. Jamdar from India. So, namaskar,
Thank you.
Jamdar.
Yeah, Namaskar.
And so,
Yes,
you have such a pleasing personality. I think when people see you, they get inspired. Is there any reason for that? How that did happen?
I feel it is God's grace. And, God has a way of working through different channels. And one of the channels is the genetics. So God puts you in the families where you get sanskars, where you get the ethical education, the morals, the values. It gives you an opportunity to learn. And there are, one of the very famous sayings by Acharya Adi Shankaracharya is Durlabhatrayame Vetat Devanugraha Hetukam. Three things are very difficult to come by, and they do not happen unless you are blessed by the Lord Almighty Himself. So Durlabhatrayame Vetat Devanugraha Hetukam Manushyatvam Mukshatvam Mahapurusha Sanshaya. So first thing is that you become a human being in the whole scheme of the nature. You can very well become a plant, you can become a vegetable, you can become an algae, you can become a bacteria. Maybe when you evolve, you become an animal, but ultimately you become a human being. And that is so rare to become a human being. And once you become a human being, then to find something called mumukshatva. Now, what is mumukshatva? Mumukshatva is a desire to know of higher things, a desire to find yourself, and a desire to get the ultimate aim of life. So once you get that, then the third thing which is difficult to come by is the help and the guidance of great men. Mahapurusha Sanshaya. It's a beautiful word. Mahapurush is a great man, and his sanshaya is his protection, his continuous blessing on you, his continuous process of giving you sanskars. Now, once you get that, then the grace of Lord actually is showered upon you. I think that's the way it is. And I feel that the feeling is mutual. What you are talking about me, I'm finding about you. And the same thing I find about my friends like Mahendra. So God has been kind.
No, thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Jamdar, coming from you. One of the things that we noticed in the recent past is that we have seen a lot of I would call it a mistraining or the bad training to our youngsters for with respect to our history and also our philosophy. And so most of the youngsters, even though they have great potential, but sometimes they get misdirected by a bad propaganda which appears to be mainstream. Do you agree with me on that or not?
I don't think anybody would disagree to that. Only thing is, the way you look at it is slightly different. Uh, I'm sure that everybody is aware that what we are talking about is a clash of civilization. And this clash of civilization results in winners and losers. And when we talk about winners and losers, we are talking about winning the war and losing the war. And unfortunately, because of the inherent weaknesses which some of our ancestors had in the form of basically selfishness, basically to think about oneself, your family, you, yourself, your family, your kingdom, so on and so forth. So when we fell into that trap, we lost. We lost to the invading hordes, and the huge hordes invaded India from the west, from particularly from the Middle Eastern countries. We had the invasion by the and all those who knew what India was, and they wanted to come into India, and they want to, plagiarize, and they want to loot. So they came in India, and they not only looted, but they tried to thrust their ideals, their sanskars, their culture on the beautiful culture that India already had, and one of the most ancient culture, I would say the most ancient culture. And they tried to thrust upon India and the population of India at that time their values, their ways, their. It's raining heavily here today, as the luck would have it, and there is a lot of gale. There was a cyclone which has just passed by, so there's a lot of electrical failure in all this area. So there's a bit of a problem here today. But anyway, so what I feel is that uh, when these invading hordes of particularly the Islamic civilization came into India, they tried to destroy the culture. They tried to completely change the perception of the youth, and then that was followed by British occupation. And British occupation ultimately actually hammered the last nail in the coffin, so to say. So what they did was they enticed and enticed the youth in such a way by the modern luxuries of life to lure them away into a life which is not really inherent to Indian philosophy. Indian philosophy gives clear-cut four periods of life. It gives brahmacharya, grahastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. And these four stages of life, which once upon a time used to be 25 years each, because then people aspired to live 100 years. So it was divided into four parts or 25 years each. Today, I believe it has the last two stages, the vanaprastha, the sannyas, has merged into one. So we have 30 years of student life. Then we have 30 years of married life, family life. And then we have 30 years to look at God, to perform tapas, to go beyond your own capabilities and imagination. Yes, more question.
Very good answer and much detailed. And you mentioned many different aspects. I think this type of the division of life is practically becoming absent because of the neglect of varnashram. And generally in India, it is considered very backward. But in America, you'll be surprised that many of the social reformers in America, they want to bring back this into America in many ways to create a balance. So the thing which is getting neglected in India is now coming back in the Western countries. In
Yeah, yeah. Look at yoga. The yoga. was completely neglected India for a long period of time, almost 2000 years. And now that the Western continents have, completely succumbed to it, uh, the yoga has come back into India as yoga.
That's
And
right.
this yoga, it's a live example.
That's right.
Yes,
And before that, the Krishna Bhakti had practically become absent in India. And through ISKCON, Krishna Bhakti now coming back to India in a big way. And so again, there is a recycle from the west to the east, which is the
that's right.
US sends it to US and US sends it back to India. Uh,
Yes.
my
The
next,
truth is,
Mhm.
yeah, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Yeah, you're saying
Life is
something. The truth is, you're saying something.
I was saying that when Sril Prabhupada came to India, to America, and started the Krishna consciousness movement, of course, he was met with a lot of resistance. And funnily enough, and surprisingly enough, the so called modernists in India also opposed him at that point of time. Of course, time proved that what every time, and his definition of Krishna's life founded on it. And the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, the way you approach Bhagavad Gita. See, Bhagavad Gita has been looked at by different people in a different perspective. Hundreds and hundreds of people have looked at Bhagavad Gita. Lokmanya Tilak, Adi Shankaracharya, Vinoba Bhave. There is a word which is called Shashwat. It's a beautiful word. Something which is it never ends. And that more questions.
So I missed last part. There was a delay in your answer. If you can repeat what
Yeah,
towards the end, yes.
yeah, yes, of course. I was saying that Srimad Bhagavad Gita and the life of Krishna has been, looked at different people over. Yes. So if you go back around 700 years, Sant Jnaneshwar started the translation of Bhagavad Gita in Marathi, and for the last 700 years, hundreds and thousands of uh, philosophers, intellectuals have translated Bhagavad Gita, have expounded on Bhagavad Gita in different ways, the way they looked at it. Adi Guru Shankaracharya, Lokmanya Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Vinoba Bhave, Vivekanand, everybody has talked on Gita, Chinmayanand. So they have all talked on. So Bhagavad Gita and the life of Krishna is an eternal source. It is, I was saying that there is a word in Sanskrit called Shashwat. This Shashwat is a very beautiful word. It actually means unending. But this unending phenomena is actually a phenomena which is sarva vyapi, it is universal. Not only on this earth, but it is all over the universe. And therefore, the love of Krishna and the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita is Shashwat and unending.
Very beautifully put. There is a concerted. So in India, the problem of lack of faith in their culture is a artificial propaganda from the Western academics, and I would blame Western academics, means mostly American academics, and somewhat European academics also. And very few times Indians fail to realize that, because in their minds it is put that if you're recognized by Harvard or Yale or Carnegie, then there is something higher than what you can achieve. But this is how the mispropaganda of the leftist enters India. It's a vicious cycle.
Yeah,
Yeah. Just to give an example, that the Harvard, the Hindu studies of Harvard is led by Francis X. Clooney, who is a Christian pastor. And he's the one who is leading, and he's the one who translated Ramanujacharya's work into English. So he has already Christianized Ramanujacharya's teachings. And now when any university in India wants to work with Harvard, they're going to import that ideology, a mixed ideology, because the Western academics are always trying uh, to build their identity. They don't have an identity. The entire history, Roman history, Greek history, everything is built on mythology. And so when anyone tries to copy them, they're going to import that impurity as well in a big way. So we in America, I begin to call them as mythology, and we invented a new term called Sathology, because which is entirely opposite of what they teach. So in my question to you is that how can we from India, because I spoke to the many parts of the US government also, and their point is that if India changes, then we change. So what can we do in India to change it? And from India, we start de-recognizing institutes like Harvard, Yale, that they have no authority to speak on Hinduism or Sanatan Dharma. And when we do that, they are going to adopt that principle. Sir, what is your viewpoint on that, please? Please say.
Right. Uh, I'm sure you are aware that the one of the very famous sentences of Srimad Bhagavad Puran, which is the most authentic history of India. Yeah, Srimad Bhagavad says, "Satyam Paramadhimahi."
Yes, first shloka.
Satyam, yeah, Satyam Paramadhimahi.
Paramdhimahi.
So, who are we invoking? Who are we worshipping? Who are we looking at? And the answer is, we are looking at Satya. We are looking at the truth. So when Mahinder told me that this Satyology is a new terminology, I absolutely fell in love with it. If we are going to ultimately get the truth and establish the truth, it is not only important to reach to the truth or to get the truth or to understand the truth, but it is also important to establish the truth. Because in your life, if you have not done your bit, you have not contributed your sweat and your blood to the establishment of truth, you have wasted your life.
That's right.
The best way to do it is to go to educational institution and to go to the young minds, the impressionable minds, the minds which are attracted by the glamour, by the bright lights, by the shining clothes, by the beautiful cars, and so on and so forth. And that has to change in India, for which we'll have to reach out to all the universities, to all the colleges, gradually to the schools, and into the educational system of India. So if the Indian educational system becomes, if they learn the basics of Hinduism, and I feel that they should be given a chance to learn Hinduism, they should be given a chance to learn Islam, to learn Christianity, to learn Taoism, and to learn anything else they want to. And then they make up their mind. Pradnanam Brahma. Shankaracharya says, Pradnanam Brahma. So ultimately, what is Brahma? What is the ultimate truth? And it is Pradnyan. It is the established knowledge which is ultimately going to lead you to the Almighty, to self-realization. And if we are talking about Advait, then we are talking about your own self evolving into God. So you give a chance to the younger generation, you give a chance to the student to learn whatever they want to learn and put it in proper perspective. I think we'll try to spread this message of Satyology all over India, and we'll try to establish these centers where Satyology becomes the talk of the town. and where we debunk the theories of the Western, you know, so-called intellectuals, so-called, uh, forward thinkers, which are is just pushing their leftist agenda onto the unsuspecting population of India.
Yeah, you use the right word, unsuspecting population. Uh, in 1492, Christopher Columbus, while searching for India, came to Cat Islands in Bahamas. And between 1492 and 1887, they killed 100 to 200 million
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
North and
yeah,
South America, Incas, Aztecs, and this. And today, if you go to Wikipedia and also the professional papers, academic papers of the Western academics, is it's being taught that whatever they believed in was mythology. It is being taught. So, so luckily, because of our saints and our gurus like Sant Dhyaneshwar and others, Prabhupada and other people, you have already quoted them. Because of them, our culture got saved. That is the biggest contribution of the saints, Sanatana Dharma saints to India, because they saved them intellectually. And that is why the British tried to kill Brahminical culture first, because Brahmins were the protectors, ideological protectors of society,
of knowledge.
of knowledge. And I think that credit goes to them, all the gurus of India, that they have protected that from the ideological attacks. But Native Americans did not have that kind of help. And now they're
Yeah,
coming to us because we are their, in a way, fathers of, from us, their theology comes from. And they are coming back to us. And so this is what these people are trying to do, put the entire culture in a museum in Vatican, and
mm,
or break the temple. So Muslims attempt was very crude, but the Christian attempt has been very subtle. But both are the
yeah,
enemy, including the leftists. The leftist attempt is also very subtle, and they attack the bases. So, in that regard, this ideological, uh, you know, attack against this strategy by the Western academics, it's very serious for us to undertake. And what you're doing, Dr. Jamdar, is phenomenal because you already understood our battle, and I think the Indian youth are ready because in terms of intellectual capacity, they are the brightest in the world as compared to the Western.
yeah,
Yes,
undoubtedly, undoubtedly.
they are the brightest in the world. So, as a last, I'll give you the forum back to you. So, what do you like to convey into your message to all the students here?
My basic message would be Satyam Paramadhimahi. And they have to understand what this word Dhimahi means. When you say Dhimahi, it gives a very clear cut idea to a Sanskrit scholar as to what we are talking about. But for an average Indian also, forget about the Western, intellectuals or youth, even Indian youth, they do not know what Dhimahi means. Dhi means intellect. When we pray to somebody for an elevation of intellect, we are praying for a blessing. And we are praying in a way that the power to which you are praying, you are worshipping the power. The power has to rise up and enlighten the entire being, not only as a human being, but also universally. And when you're talking about universal enlightenment, you are talking about truth, which is Shashvat, which is unending, which can never change. And this Satya, this truth, is the one which we are worshipping. Truth has different ways of, uh, sort of coming out of its. itself in different ways. If you look at that two completely, Ram was a 100% law abiding person. In fact, the Valmiki Ramayana says, Ramo Vigrahavan Dharmaha. Ram's life is actually the ideal depiction of what is called Dharma. Now we'll talk about Dharma at a later point of time because I'm sure we are running short of time at this point. And Dharma is a big subject. But when we talk about Dharma, we are basically talking about one's duties towards the society, towards your family, towards your parents, towards your wife and everybody. So Ram's life rotates around fulfilling his mandate for a perfect karma. But look at Krishna. Krishna, his life is what is known as Uddeshya Kendrit. His life is result oriented. He says that if you want to get a particular result, you want to establish dharma, and if for establishment of dharma, you have to cross the line at different times and take more or less something like taking the law in your hands. If you have bending the law, if you are breaking the law, but in the long run, if you are establishing the truth, if you are establishing the dharma, which is all the goodness in the world, then it is all worth it. So Ram and Krishna are diagonally opposite personalities, but their ultimate objective is same, and that is establishment of dharma. Krishna says, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutthanam adharmasya tadatmanam srajamya. What Krishna is saying is that there will be cyclical changes in the world. By cycles, the religious and the non-religious, dharmic and the adharmic, pravrittis, concepts will rule over the world, one by one. But whenever there is a trauma to the society, whenever there is a rise in adharma, whenever there is a rise in the complete what we can call as anarchist way of life, then I will come myself. Krishna says that I will be there. And what I feel is in the form of all the Mahapurushas, whether it is Ram, Krishna, whether it is Ram Krishna Paramahans, Vivekanand, whether it is Shankaracharya, Madhvacharya, Nimbarkacharya, Amanujacharya, and whether it is even to the extent of coming down today to Acharya Rajneesh, Bhagwan Rajneesh so called. They are all a embodiment of the Lord. They have come to enlighten some people, a select group of people. And even today, if you look at the Godmen of India, you look at Jaggi Vasudev, you look at Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, you look at my Guru, Yoga Guru Satyananda Saraswati, Niranjanananda Saraswati, you look at Chinmaya Ananda, you look at Chinmay Mission, and there are hundreds and hundreds of intellectuals who are carrying on this word. And they are carrying on this wonderful work all over the world. They are traveling abroad. They are talking about these things. And the Indian youth, I am happy to say, are following them. If you look at Jaggi Vasudev, if you look at Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, you find thousands and thousands of followers, huge crowds into that program. And they are all teaching one thing, which is Sanatan Dharma. And when we say Sanatan, it means that it is Anadi, it is Ananta. It started with the formation of the universe, and it will continue on till the destruction of universe, which in itself is a cyclical phenomenon. So I think with this, I would like to conclude today's talk, and I would like you to suggest to me what you would like me to talk on, because today we just took some questions and answers and in a general way, and I'll have my laptop or iTab next time so that it is properly set. talk
So,
about whatever you tell me.
so today's topic, I think this video will be, many people are watching live also. And today's talk I would like to title as Satyam Param Dhimahi, because you invoke the Bhagavad Puran's first shloka, and then that's where I want to put it title as. And in the coming weeks and coming discussions, uh, we will definitely share with you topic and take your inputs also, which you can tell us. But meanwhile, we all enjoyed the passion and the faith and the service that you have done for the mankind for so long, and we saw it live in action in the way you spoke to us with authority, and we really appreciate that. And thank you very much, Dr. Jamdar. And it's a real pleasure to hear you, to see you, and also to share your views that you shared with us. Thank you and namaskar. And
Thank you, Aditya. And I feel you, I'm sure that everybody knows what the meaning of Aditya is. I, I need not enlighten people on that. Aditya is the sun god, and the sun god has only one duty, which is to provide light to the entire world. And sun god, look, lights have gone again here. But the sun god is with you, and through you, sun god is actually spreading his light and energy all over the world, particularly in the United States. So I thank the Lord for your presence and your enthusiasm in starting the Satyology, this entire uh, instrument of Lord. Thank you very much.
thank you and namaskar and thank you. For viewers, please continue watching the next video podcast, which is going to start shortly with Manga. Thank you. Namaskar.